In the Gun, episode number 24 here. It's time for an Iowa State recap. Wesley Euler with the best teammates in the business, the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and the runaway beer truck, Owen Schmidt. This episode of ITG brought to you by Bet Online. Basketball is back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup information, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports and events, whether that's the NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, college sports, and even golf. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE when you sign up to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Glad to be alive.
Well, I know something that's not alive.
Yep, if it's brown, it's down, son.
And that's says the guy who works for the Brown, you know. It's that time of year, right on.
You can't grill it if you don't kill it.
Yeah, it's that time of year. So our boy was late because he was trekking across the countryside for the better part of 4 hours as a deer bled out on him.
Yeah, you gotta. That's why you always practice the old shots before you go out. I figured, hey, it was good last season. I figured I'll just get it out, and I ended up, taking a bad hit on a deer, and ended up going for a magical trip through the woods with my offense coordinator, Isaac Osborne, down here at Greenbrier. We thought we'd do something cool for the boys and get them a deer and do some chili, some back straps, and a roast, and we went on a journey for sure.
That you did. This season has been a journey. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Jed, I know as you like to do here, though, on the first episode of the week, take a look real quick, briefly, at the new top 25 across college football. We'll pull up the graphic now, and we've got a new number one.
Yeah, we do. Of course, what we're looking at here is the AP top 25 and the coaches poll top 25. But we've reached the time of year where it's kind of rendered meaningless on Tuesday, as Tuesday night, the new playoff ranking will drop each week. But interesting things unfolding in some of these top two polls, as I still think they have a pretty direct influence on the playoff ranking. It's nice to see TCU surviving the war of attrition and climb into the top five. They now sit at number 4. You kind of wondered how the committee was going to handle Alabama losing the way they did on the road in a tight game in overtime to LSU. Well, LSU's now up to number 7. Bama dropped to number 10. That's in the Associated Press. Bama actually, and the coaches, dropped out of the top 10. And then elsewhere in the Big 12, some interesting goings on. Texas found a way to do something they heretofore hadn't had a lot of success with under Steve Sarkisian, and that's leave Austin and beat a good football team. And so they did that and held on. I watched it on the plane on the way back from Iowa, actually. And they held on for a big one at K-State. So they're now back in the top 20 at 18. And then when you look at K-State, they've actually dropped to 23. That's in the Associated Press. But Oregon, again, Oregon just keeps on chugging. I mean, I think at the end of the day, irrespective of what they do or don't do, they'll be blocked out by the nature of that loss, okay? Not all losses are created equal early in the season or otherwise. The 49-3 loss to Georgia, but they haven't lost since then. They won 8 straight. So now they find themselves perched right outside of the top 5 at number 6 in the Associated Press. But let's see how it shakes out in the playoff ranking, because last week was the first time, to my knowledge, you had a 1 versus 1 in the sense that Tennessee was number 1 in the playoff rankings. Georgia was number 1 in the AP. So let's see what the playoff rankings hold on Tuesday night. But
it's always a week-to-week thing this time of year. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to hang on. You know, a team like Ohio State, right? It wasn't pretty for them at times against Northwestern and in those weather conditions there in Illinois, but they're able to get a win. Alabama falls. Tennessee falls. You just got to survive. TCU, you just got to hang around. And it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out here over the next 3 weeks, certainly, as we come down the stretch of this regular season. Jed, before we go to break, at the 50. Anything specific you want to talk to us about that you saw on the trip, saw on the field? Something quirky, something X's and O's wise? What do you got for us this week?
Well, we stayed at a different venue than we had at any point in Iowa. Normally we stay in West Des Moines. This was the first trip in which we didn't. We actually stayed in this small town. Small, it might have 20,000 right at the check, but Ankeny, Iowa, which is a little closer to Ames, about 25 minutes out. But we got up Saturday morning, guys. It was low 30s, raining like crazy, windy, nasty, freezing. But you had to keep an eye on the hourly weather projection because it was supposed to be nice by kickoff. So I kind of packed and dressed accordingly. And wouldn't you know it, as bad as it was when we got there, those flags are always howling next to the press box too. I mean, that stadium really takes in some wind. But by kickoff, to their credit, they recently resodded that field. They actually, Owen brought farm grass in from 2 or 3 miles from campus and completely resoldered it recently. And they had it covered with a nice tarp. And it wasn't until a couple hours before kickoff, they pulled the tarp off, and it was ideal. The conditions turned out to be ideal. Everything was ideal except the game. The field was in good shape. The conditions were great. The sun was out. But that was about the only positive. I always think to myself, they've done some renovations even since the last time we were there in 2020. When we leave our locker room, which used to be the home locker room, back when we first moved into the Big 12, it was Iowa State's locker room. Now we're in it. What used to be, we'd walk down out of the tunnel, down to the corner of the end zone, right next to the grassy knoll full of Iowa State fans on blankets, like early days Mountaineer Field, right? Well, they've since closed that in. So there's more seating even built in there. But there's a lot of renovations that have taken place in that building. When we first started going there, guys, back in 2012, 2014, it was open-ended on both sides. Well, now the other end is completely enclosed with seating expansion, and they've done a nice job. But again, big crowd, nice crowd. They had 56,000, for a team that was 0-5 in the Big 12 going into the game. They turn out. I mean, their fans do that. It's always impressive. And they're into it. They're energized. They're dialed in. Nice student section. A lot of energy on the field. But, we'll talk throughout the course of the show about what didn't happen. But not a whole lot of good stuff played out for us. I'm not so sure at field level it looked any more or less appealing than it did on TV. And it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch.
It certainly was.
But
tough for us to watch. I'm sure it was tough to watch there in person as well, too. Good thing Owen and I didn't make that trip to Ames that we were talking about in the previous
very good thing. Yeah, very good thing.
That would have been a long drive.
As we talked about, Wes, every time it was a road game, I wish I had made the trip, Yeah.
I don't know if our luck would have helped out.
I don't think so.
I was willing to try
unless you
anything.
could have strapped it up and gotten back out there. Yeah.
I was willing to try anything, but no, it's Xavier Hutchinson. I'll say this in person. Again, I was impressed by him before. I'm impressed by him again. Great route runner, shifty feet, very slick. They move him around, but up close, it's kind of, he's kind of artful when you watch him up close at field level. That's something that maybe on the coach's tape I couldn't appreciate as much, and I was reminded of what he looks like in person. That's one of the things that jumps out to me. But outside of that, moving on.
We are going to move on. We'll get into a full Iowa State recap for you here in just a few minutes. But first, when we come back on the other side every week on our preview shows, we make some predictions. We make some projections. We will revisit those and see how we did last week. I got to tell you, somebody on this show hit another home run and is starting to pull away from the field. But we'll talk about that when we return on the other side. You are in the gun.
I'm talking with J.R. Toothman of Toothman Ford. J.R., everybody knows a lot of pro athletes buy from you. What's the secret?
Just like Will Greer, future Hall of Famer Frank Gore, James Washington, and many more pros, these guys have financial advisors that are always looking out for them to save time and money, and that's why they always shop at Toothman Ford.
And what if you're like us regular folks that don't have people giving us advice?
You don't need a financial advisor. Toothman Ford will save you time and money no matter who you are. Plus, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy from us. Visit ToothmanFord.com and get a quick, instant cash offer.
That sounds like a score to me.
That's right. And as always, we'll take anything in trade from chicken wings to Super Bowl rings.
Toothman Ford's got a lot of fans. Here's another one, Dallas Cowboys QB Will Grier.
This is Will Grier, former West Virginia and current NFL quarterback. And cars really do cost less in Grafton at Toothman Ford.
That's a fact, Will. Thanks. You can shop online anytime at toothmanford.com.
Let's go, Mountaineer fans. You're tuned in to In the Gun with Wes, the Runaway Beer Truck, and the Signal Caller.
Back in the gun here. It's time to take a look and see how we did last week. We make some predictions. We make some projections. We'll start with the projections. We just talked about the top 25, some big moving and shaking there. Alabama going down, Georgia going down. Let's pull up our graphic now, take a look back at those top 25 games that we projected last week, Jed, and how close did we get here?
Bama going down, Georgia going up, Wes. But what happened was Georgia seemed to some like a heavy favorite going into that game. They were favored by 8-ish right in that ballpark, and turns out that was on point. We projected a 37-28 Bulldogs win. As you can see, the actual result on the right, they won 27-13 by a couple touchdowns at home between the hedges there. Alabama went to LSU. Again, another one that I was flipping back and forth on the plane watching on the flight back. What a last half of the fourth quarter in that game. Great overtime, big decision by Brian Kelly to go for 2 in the win, and it worked out. We projected, as Alabama was favored by 13, a 35-21 win. We said it would be something like that. As it turns out, LSU won in overtime, 32-31. And then finally, Wake Forest was favored against NC State in the Fighting Gibbies on the road at NC State. Gibby and company, 30-21 was the actual result. They held on for a nice win to go 7-2 over a ranked Wake Forest team.
Yes, they did. That was a good game. There were some good ones on Saturday. Certainly, I think the SEC with those 2 top 10 matchups kind of dominating the headlines there. But that was a good battle between NC State and Wake as well too. All right, Jed, Big 12 moving and shaking in the conference. Another week of some close games. Another week of some surprising results here, I think, as well too. How do we do across the conference?
Yeah, a lot of action outside of West Virginia's game. There were 4 other matchups within the league. Texas Tech traveling to TCU. We projected a 41-31 TCU win as they were favored by 10. Well, as it turns out, they did win by 10. The actual result was 34-24. So anyway, TCU keeps everybody at arm's length to go 8-0, or excuse me, now 9-0 on the season. Baylor on the road at Oklahoma. We projected, as Oklahoma was favored, a 31-27 Sooners win. Not what played out. Baylor with another big win, 38-35. They're now 6-3. Again, well-coached team, a pretty complete team. I think they're going to keep on winning some games. Oklahoma State at Kansas. This is one of the surprising ones, guys. Oklahoma State was favored. This line kind of bounced back and forth. It moved everywhere. We projected a 37-34 Oklahoma State win in a shootout. They got their doors blown off, 37-16. Of course, I should say Spencer Sanders didn't play, but meanwhile, their backup threw for 3 bills plus. So there was some production, but just not a lot of efficiency on the offense. Hard to say what's going on with that Oklahoma State squad, guys. This is very un-Gundy-like. Texas on the road at K-State as a 3-point dog. Texas with a big road win. Again, this has been one of the shortcomings under Sarkisian. They played well in Austin, but they haven't played so well on the road. They went on the road into the Little Apple and held on for a big 34-27 win. It came right down to the wire and ended with a Martinez turnover, right? So maybe some of those old habits from Nebraska are resurfacing at poor times for the Wildcats.
Yeah, that was, you know what, that was the one that I kind of had circled just to keep an eye on. A swing game for both of those programs. You know, you kind of win and you're still on the right track. You lose, and all of a sudden maybe you're, you know, a game or 2 behind where you wanted to be. Sark finally gets that you know, road win to notch on his belt, if you will, against a ranked team, a team that was playing really well in K-State. Yeah, certainly a big week here as we enter November across the conference. All right, those are the projections that we make every single week. Not predictions, but these are predictions. Jed tells you his Big 12 signal caller of the week. Of course, which quarterback in the conference will throw for the most yards. And speaking of Mr. Martinez, Jed?
Well, let's talk about this. I took the approach that I was going to curse Hunter Deckers, and it kind of worked. You know, Hunter Deckers didn't exactly light it up. I said, look, if I pick him, there's no way he throws for the most yards because I've yet to pick a winner. And sure enough, I picked Hunter Deckers for Iowa State to throw for the most. He finished 4th. And as you can see on the graphic, Adrian Martinez, as you touched on, Wes, big day through the air, 329 yards for K-State against Texas. And then we had a backup quarterback for Oklahoma State, throw for 304 at Kansas, but in a losing effort. Dylan Gabriel continues to play solid football for the Sooners, but in a losing effort against Baylor. But Hunter Deckers comes in at number 4, which is good enough in our point system, our scoring system, for 2 points, and that's all.
Get you on the board, certainly. Now, Owen, this is interesting here. Of course, the beer truck of the week. Owen tells us which running back in the conference will rush for the most yards. Big O, just when he was dead to you, I mean, did Devin Neal, not only did he resurrect, I mean, he was like that gif you see all the time of the Undertaker, like popping up through the coffin right there. I mean, he resurrected, man. He's like Jesus and the Undertaker all rolled in one.
He obviously listens to the podcast.
Yeah,
he wasn't happy.
He does. He was obviously upset with me and wanted to rub it in a little bit. So he goes out with the rest of the Kansas team. Has a day, right? Has a big day, 224 on the ground, and really shows what he can do, right? That's what I kind of thought he would do all year. Unfortunately, he just hasn't gotten the touches. They count on him big time. He ends up coming through. I unfortunately picked the deuce is loose, right? And Vaughn, his counterpart, Bijan Robinson, in that game versus Texas, ends up coming in second with the big 209 there on the yardage. Apparently, I know nothing about the beer truck of the week. So
all your boys that you were picking heavy early in the season, now they're coming on.
Yeah, now they're getting their second wind, right? They're getting their second wind, and they're bringing it to the table. That unfortunately leaves me with 0 points, and I'm pretty sure Jed and I are probably tied at this point.
We'll get to that later in the week, but I'll say this: you're kind of the I'm trying to think about maybe a Glenn Davis. I'm dating myself now, but a power hitter with like a 220 average. But you knock 45 or 50 out of the park. I'm like a 250 hitter with no homers and no power. And meanwhile, here's Wes. He's in the number 3 spot, like hitting 330, leading the league in dingers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Well,
I commend you.
I guess you could call me the bad guy here, although I will say this is I'm in the top 3 in this race, and I ain't number 2 or 3. All right. I knew that I was either going to curse Iowa State or I was going to finish in first here, so I guess it was a win-win situation for me. I took the Cyclones as my defense of the week. Pull up the graphic now. You can see that was the case as they surrendered just 14 points to the Mountaineers, and so that gets me 7 points here on the week. With my 3rd home run. Watch out, Aaron Judge. I'm coming for you here, baby.
I get a home run off your mom. I mean, come on. It's that can't feel good, right?
Hey, you know what? I mean, sometimes you just got to trot around the bases and smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. Like Jed said, when we have our Oklahoma preview for you here in the next couple of days, we will show the scoreboards, the standings of our year-long competition here later on in the week. But that'll do it for our predictions and our projections. When we come back here, it is time to get into the game recap. What happened against the Cyclones, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pivotal moments, everything in between we will discuss when we return on the other side. Wesley Euler, Owen Schmidt, Jed Drenning. It's ITG. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit Fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
For more West Virginia Mountaineer football content, be sure to follow us on Twitter @InTheGunPodcast.
Game day got you on the go? We get it. GoMart is here to keep you going all season long with stores throughout our home state. We're a proud West Virginia-owned company, and our friendly staff is committed to serving our communities. From fuel to freshly brewed coffee and snacks, a stop at GoMart to cover your game day needs is always a touchdown. Plus, GoMart Rewards members earn points with each purchase to redeem for discounts on gas and free items. So stop by, start saving, and stay on the go with GoMart.
It's episode 24 here of ITG. 31-14, the final score in Ames as the Mountaineers fall to the Cyclones on a ugly result there. Certainly, in one of the tougher places to play in the Big 12. They were ready to go for that one. We do obviously make these projections as well too for the WVU game. Let's take a look at that here real quick, Jed. Our projection versus the actual result. How'd we do?
Well, again, we were looking at a projection based on the point spread of something in the ballpark of a 28-21 Iowa State win, which seemed like a lot of points. And as it turns out, there were more points in that game than they're actually in the projection than there actually turned out to be in the real game. But unfortunately, not enough for West Virginia, as the real score on the right was 31-14, as we all unfortunately recall. But the projection was 28-21. The actual score 31-14.
All right, let's get into it. Where do you Jedgar, wise one.
Well, here, I'll say this.
Where do we want to start here?
I'm going to say a couple quick things, and I'll pass back to you guys, and then I'll expand on my bad. All right. The good, okay, Saudi defense for 3 quarters, 10-7 game, into the fourth quarter, played winning football and gave us a chance into that fourth quarter to win this game. The only thing I can come up with offensively, and it was for a very short spurt, was early in the game, we had the running game going before penalties and a host of other things got us bailing out. I think we'll get into the lack of rhythm, but it was very self-inflicted in the sense that when you have as few snaps as we had, when you have as many 3 and outs as we had, you're not going to find any rhythm, much less find any answers. But that running game success, which lasted for maybe a drive and a couple plays, Owen, didn't last long. So that's a stretch to even reach for that as some kind of silver lining. But that's the only good that I could come up with. But you guys feel free to pitch in and then jump on it with your bad.
Yeah, I was actually in the stand, and we were checking the score over the phone, and the third quarter was going. I said, okay, we're at least in this game. I end up driving over to my OC's house, and I said, man, we're battling. I said, not bad. And then he looks at me dead straight in the eyes, and he goes, bro, we got waxed in the fourth quarter. I said, oh no, dude. So then I end up looking at the recap, and I'm like, oh gosh, what happened? We fell apart. I mean, honestly, all game, drop passes, like you said, the run game, we were down. We kind of didn't really think there was going to be a lot of surge there anyways, but we just not good football.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you, Jed. If I'm trying to pull some good from that, the defense, they did their part. They did. And there is the other side of that, which I'm sure you'll get into, of at just some point, it felt like through a lot of that game, your defense is able to get off the field, and they're able to bend but not break, and they're able to keep Iowa State at just 10 points heading into the fourth quarter. Kind of like we talked about after the Baylor game, though. This team, the way they're built, it's unfair of the defense, but you need more than that. Like, it's not enough just to keep points off the scoreboard. You need splash plays. You need short fields. You need big momentum change of possessions. And so I'm not crushing the defense. I'm not blaming the defense, certainly. But I also wouldn't call it a complete performance at the same time, because just at a couple moments there, an interception, a forced fumble, anything I think could have really, had you in business and given your offense, which was struggling, a short field and an opportunity at maybe a quick strike, or you get a scoop 6 or something like you did against Baylor and you put some points on the board yourself. Like I said, it's unfair to put all of that on them. I'm not blaming them. But that's kind of the complete performance, I think, at the same time that we're going to need to win games this year, and I think that has been proven. But I will give them a tip of the cap, because without the defense, they wouldn't have been in that game, certainly heading into the fourth quarter.
Oh, it'd have been manslaughter.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been close. And, even for the time that it was close, in the end it wasn't. But, Wes, you're spot on. It had the feeling of one of those games that you're like, all right, if we don't find a pulse offensively, this dam's going to break.
Yes.
It had that feeling. You definitely, for 3 quarters, we had Iowa State playing the role of everything we said they were. This wretched running game that can't get out of their own way offensively. Their numbers on the ground were atrocious, and 30 of those yards on the ground that were atrocious even came on a reverse. They hadn't run the ball at all through 3 quarters. And the next thing you know, the defense is on the field and on the field and on the field, and we miss a run fit. Okay. In the post game, Dante even said, hey, that was on me. It was my fit, and I missed it. We missed a run fit. They bust a big one. We miss a tackle. They bust another big one. This is all the type of thing that revisit the Baylor game. That's a great example, Wes.
Yeah.
What played out in the Baylor game, and the reason that we were able to win the Baylor game, was the defense did have its moments. Yeah, sure. We gave up a lot of big plays. We gave up a lot of yardage, but we made some plays. We forced 3 turnovers, right? The special teams made a play on the blocked kick with a 2-point return, right? So the defense did show a pulse at times during the Baylor game. And you kind of got the feeling that had the offense done the same thing in Ames, it just showed a pulse.
Yeah.
If you can string together a drive in the third quarter when the thing's still hanging in the balance at 10-7, at some point for that 15, 20-minute stretch that it did, things could have been different, but we couldn't do that. We answered with another 3 and out and another 3 and out. And we couldn't even come close enough to be on the field long enough to try and find some answers. We got nothing to work. We got no production out of virtually anybody on the offensive side. There were a couple guys up front that I think played okay. But from a skill position standpoint, again, I thought that Justin Johnson maybe had a chance once he was announced as starter to step in there and do some things. And he got off to a solid start. But he, as much as anyone, Owen, was victimized by how far off script we fell, how far out of rhythm we got with the lack of snaps and production and conversions. The big thing to me, and I guess this is an opportunity, if we haven't already, to dive specifically into the bad. The big thing to me was a strength of ours throughout the course of the season has been our production on third down. We always kind of lead with that, right? We're around the 50% mark. We're number 2 in the conference. We're among the national leaders. Well, we knew this was going to be a battle of good on good, okay? Because they're one of the better third down defenses in the Big 12. Well, they didn't just win. They kicked our butt. Yeah. We were 2 of 12 on third down. We didn't really give ourselves a chance. And it was a wide variety of third and yardage situations from a third down standpoint. There were some third and shorts. We converted the first 3rd and 2. It gets called back on a holding call in Wyatt Milam. We had some third and intermediates. We had some third and longs. Wide array of third down opportunities. And we were 2 of 12. So that's losing football. That's not good football. That's a dud. Again, offensively, no rhythm, in part because of that. You have to win on third down to find rhythm. If you don't win on third down and you're that decimated and dominated on third down, you're not going to be on the field long enough to find any rhythm. You're not giving yourself a chance. And then obviously explosive plays, the lack of explosive plays. Offensively, we certainly didn't make any to help ourselves out because it's so difficult to drive against these guys anyway, because of the patience you have to demonstrate, the efficiency you have to show in moving the sticks on third down. We couldn't do any of those things. And defensively, again, in part because they started to lean on us, in part because the dam was breaking. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, they did kind of find us. where they made some big plays. We had a matchup in one situation where we had Muhammad on Xavier Hutchinson out of the spear spot on that touchdown reception. We had situations where Charles Woods was in and out of the game, dinged up all day. Matter of fact, they pulled him for a while. They had to retape his ankle, put him back out there. So one of the things that I thought had to be a strength of ours turned out to be a banged up commodity trying to hold his own against Xavier Hutchinson. And it could have been far worse. I mean, even when the game was still hanging in the balance, this was in the second quarter, I think, guys, we had Iowa State down inside their own 25, and Hutchinson was to our boundary, and over top of him was Charles, okay? And again, Charles was struggling with that ankle issue. Well, what happened was Deckers went to the formation to the field with the ball on a quick screen. Meanwhile, Charles had slipped, and Hutchinson had him beat for a 75, 78-yard touchdown, and Hutchinson was going crazy, smacking his fist. Again, Charles is fighting that ankle, couldn't keep his feet. Hutchinson makes a move, he reacts. We got away with one there. This could have been worse, okay? Defensively, I'll say this. We held serve, and we kept us in the game for 3 plays, okay? But we didn't make any big plays. We had a couple sacks. We were somewhat disruptive and knocking them backwards and off script, but no turnovers. And this is no turnovers against a team, an offense that has committed the most turnovers in the Big 12 Conference. It's against an offense that is led by a quarterback. I think Hunter Deckers is a talented kid, but I also think they're asking too much of him because they've been so one-dimensional. He's thrown more picks than anybody in the league. We kept him, let him maintain control. And then finally, by the time the fourth quarter came around, that's when we were completely a different team defensively and really couldn't wrap up. Our technique started to erode. That's when we started missing gaps and run fits. And that's when they got the best of us. But that's the long and short of it to me from a bad standpoint. I'm sure you guys can pile on and find some more. I mean, Neil didn't find anything good in the post-game presser. I was sitting next to him, and he kind of said some of what I'm saying now. I challenge you to find a whole lot of positive or much of a silver lining coming out of that football game.
Yeah. Offensively, if we could have just showed up, and obviously we knew coming in Iowa State stingy on defense, but if we could just score some points, I mean, and just do what we've kind of been doing. I mean, offensively and score, a quarter, right? Get those touchdowns in when we can, but just couldn't, like you said, get in those rhythms. Unfortunately, run game, how much can you really put on a kid who hasn't gotten a lot of snaps? Mm-hmm. You hope for the best for that kid to come in, be able to make the plays and step up when he needs to. And then, as a defense, and just from back in the day when I was playing, it's disheartening when you're doing your job and you're holding your own, obviously, and keeping the game close. And offensively, it's like they didn't even show up to the game at all. And it's just so disheartening, you know what I mean? And then obviously it looked like mentally and physically we just got tired in the fourth quarter and ended up, that's what ends up happening.
Well, and not only could we not score offensively, we couldn't even impact field position.
That's what I mean.
It was like in the first half, there was this one sequence. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, when you can't move the ball, I mean, it's just so, man, it's been a struggle this year. And you'd think at least we'd show up and do somewhat of what we did, you know what I mean? Scoring only, what was it, 10 points we got?
14 by the end, but it was 10-7 at the half. One of the sequences I remember where we had them pinned, and this was a 10-7 game in the first half. Points were very much at a premium. Possessions were at a premium. And one time early in the game, we had them pinned defensively deep in their own territory. And we made them punt from deep in their own territory. And I'm like, all right, if that's the style of game this is going to be, all right, well, let's get the ball midfield. Let's move it a little bit, maybe get it field goal. But instead, they punted from deep in their own territory. They 3-and-outed us. We punted back, then they gained 20 yards the next time. Then they punted again. And the next thing you know, we're punting to them and they're getting it at midfield and they're driving in for a score. That's the type we couldn't even impact from a hidden yardage standpoint, the field position, much less score. Yeah. So that's what was frustrating about it. We couldn't even get a pulse. We couldn't even find a pulse. I mean, if you can just battle and fight and survive and stay on the field long enough and win just one or two of those third downs, then maybe what happens is you start to flesh this thing out and you start to discover some answers. But one thing a defense can do to completely keep you answerless for the balance of 60 minutes is not let you run many snaps. And when they're 3 and out, we had a point in the fourth quarter where we had, I think, about as many first downs as we had 3 and outs. That's what everybody's talking about. The TV broadcast was mentioning it. I had people texting me about it. So when you get that late in the game and you had single-digit first downs, I mean, that's an issue. That's an issue for a host of reasons, not only because you can't impact field position, you can't impact scoring, but you're not even able to see what they're trying to do to you. I mean, I would say John Haycock might have had some of his best stuff left in his pocket by the end of the game. He didn't need to use it, because of the minimum number of snaps that they even faced as a team. So, I mean, when you run 49 plays as a team, the defense doesn't have to roll out a whole lot of different looks against you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeesh. I'm also too, just to piggyback on the pain here. We talk a lot on this show, guys, and at least maybe not a lot. I'm probably exaggerating there, but we've mentioned this a few times that progression isn't always linear, right? How sometimes people think progression just means on a week-to-week basis you're always going to look a little bit better. Week to week we're going to look a little bit better than we did last week. Progression's not always that simple. Sometimes, right, it's 3 steps forward and then a step back, and then 2 steps forward and then a step back, and then 5 steps forward and then 3 steps back. Progression isn't always linear, but the inconsistency with the offense is concerning to me at this point. I think after what we all saw the first 2 weeks, starting up in Pitt on that Thursday night game in week 1, when offense is usually really bad across college football in week 1, right? Because these teams don't have preseason games like they do in the NFL. It takes a little bit longer for the offense to get their legs underneath them than the defense. And then the performance against Kansas, right? And even some of the things you were able to do against Virginia Tech as well, too. It just, to me, it felt like in those first 4 weeks of the season, okay, we've got some growing pains on defense, clearly. We've got a really young secondary who, they're experienced, but they're not experienced at this level, and we've had a lot of turnover there, and we've been hit hard in the portal, and it's going to take some time for the defense, but we're going to be able to lean on the offense. They're going to be able to keep us in games. They're going to be exciting. They're going to be explosive, and it just feels like that's regressed. And like I said, I know that progression isn't always linear just because, we scored 31 points week 1 and then 42 points week 2 and then lit it up against Towson. That doesn't mean that was always going to continue to grow without steps back and without down weeks. But it's just, I was convinced, again, after the first 3-4 weeks of this season, that it was going to be a struggle on defense, but that the offense was going to be able to do enough. They were going to be able to score enough points consistently for us to at least stay competitive in these games. And, 3 of our last 5 games now, we've been non-competitive, and that might be a bit of an exaggeration for Iowa State because it was a 3-point game going into the fourth quarter, but non-competitive in terms of the final score, certainly. And I think a big part of that has been inconsistency on offense. The explosion isn't there, and I know the injuries are there as well too, but it's also week 9 or week 10 in college football. The defenses are banged up as well. No one's 100% healthy this time of year. That's just the reality. I'm a little discouraged by what has, been what feels like tangible progress and improvement for this offense throughout the season.
Well, I'll say this. Consistency's been an issue offensively for sure. And for that matter, defensively. We've ebbed and flowed.
It's both sides of the ball.
Yeah, we thought we found a path, all right, to maybe what good could look like with this team against Baylor. Against a good Baylor team and a big win. We thought we found, okay, it's one thing if you want to play this bend but don't break style, and even if you give up some points, some significant points, that's fine. But the trade-off has to be you have to find a way to steal some possessions with 2 or 3 turnovers. And in the Baylor game, they did that. They forced 3 turnovers. They scored on one of them. That hasn't been there all along. Not only has that not been there, but some of the other effectiveness hasn't been there from a tackling standpoint. And then obviously, as you touched on, the offense is struggling, the defense. That's just the thing, guys. We can't seem to sync it up, okay? In other words, we bailed ourselves out a couple times with one unit playing when the other unit didn't really bring its best football, but it's victimized us far more than we've survived it. I'd say maybe one of the only times that you could say we came close to, for the better part of 60 minutes, playing effective football on both sides was probably Virginia Tech, against an FBS opponent. I'd say probably Virginia Tech. We could have scored again at the end there, right?
Yeah.
And that was a pretty unilateral beatdown
on the
road.
Some drives that stalled there too, where you settled for 3 and felt like you should have punched it in. Yeah.
We moved the ball. Again, they were a 2-1 team at the time, giving us their best shot in prime time. They still believed in themselves. They hadn't been beat up by the schedule yet. So, yeah, I'd say that's the closest this team has come. The defense played well. The offense played well. Special teams, we muffed the punt. It went out of bounds. Lady Luck even smiled upon us in that game. But outside of that, it's been a function of, okay, well, maybe one shows up and the other one doesn't. I mean,
right.
Even the other night, it reminded me in one sense of, and we'll get to the pivotal moment, which I'll be surprised if we don't have the same one here. But there was a moment that was similar in this game to the Pitt game, in that we had a 4th and 1 situation and punted and pinned the opposition deep, and they drove the length of the field after pinning them deep. In other words, you roll the dice and say, hey, your defense is playing well, your punter's playing well. Can you pin them? Well, against Pitt, we rolled the dice and said, yeah, we pinned them at the 8. And they drove 92 yards. And after our defense had snuffed them out for 3 straight possessions, something similar happened here, but we'll get into that.
Yes, we will. In fact, are you going to go there right now? You want to go to pivotal moments? Let's do it. Jed, I think we actually have a different one here based off your little tease there. So why don't you go ahead? You were hitting at it there a little bit. What do you got for pivotal moment real quick, brought to you by our friends at High Street Prints? Make sure you're checking them out, highstreetprintshop.com, for all your printing and merchandise needs. Of course, if you go on itgfootball.com, you click on shop. We've got hats, we've got shirts, we've got hoodies, we've got polos, all provided by the good people at High Street Prints. Mr. Signal Caller, your pivotal moment was?
Well, we had a sequence, again, when it was still a 10-7 game. You're going late into the 3rd quarter, early into the 4th. And, Iowa State had been pinned at their own 6-yard line with a kick. We decided to punt on 4th and 1 at our 33. Some suggested, hey, maybe roll the dice. I don't know, the defense is playing well. Ollie Straw is playing lights out. The Australian sniper. So he punts and boots it and pins him down at the 6. Well, the defense rises to the occasion and gets a stop and forces a 4th and 7 at the Iowa State 21. And when they punt, wouldn't you know it, roughing the punter on Reese Smith.
Okay,
so that extends
the same page here.
That gives them new life. Okay. And so a sequence that started with them pinned at their own 6, 94 yards away, suddenly finds them 1st and 10 at their own 36. 2 plays later. If that didn't break the spirit of the defense, it certainly seemed to break their back. 2 plays later, Deion Silas, 38 yards, busts a run. First time they looked decent all night running the football, and this is early in the 4th quarter. 4 plays after the block punt. Hunter Deckers to Xavier Hutchins for the 24-yard touchdown. They're up 17-7, and basically that's a ball game because the defense that we knew and loved for 3+ quarters was gone after that. But that blocked punt seemed to have some kind of effect in that 2 plays later, huge play in the run game, 4 plays later, capping off the drive in the pass game. And again, much like the situation at Pitt, where we rolled the dice on 4th and 1 to see if we can pin them and benefit from it. Well, we pinned them and we didn't benefit from it. The defense had them stopped after a situation that started at the 6, then the fake punt extended it. And it results in basically an extended 94-yard drive that was aided and abetted by the running into the kicker, roughing the kicker, I should say. And is that where you're at, Wes?
Yes, sir, it is. You dressed it up a little bit okay. Nicer than I would have. Yes. I was not going to bring in the reference of once again a punt situation working out well. I like how you did that. I was just going to go with quite simply Reese Smith roughing the kicker. Like you said, 2 plays later, they bust a big one. 4 plays later, they score a touchdown. And then, as you referenced earlier in the episode, Jed, how even though the defense was hanging in there and keeping you alive, it still felt like you were just one moment away from Iowa State, from that dam breaking and from them busting that thing open. And I think we all kind of, when that flag came out of the pocket on roughing the kicker there, we all, I think, kind of felt like that was the moment. And then 4 plays later, we were proven correct there.
I'll double back to the last time I felt like that in a 2-possession game, which was at the time, but I want to hear Owen's pivotal moment first.
No, basically the big drive, the 94-yard drive, right? So, and not so much, obviously the special teams that kills you, but just being so late in the game and them, mustering up a long drive after we've, played pretty stout defense thus far. I mean,
can't have it.
You can't, you know what I mean? And it just is as far as the defense, you almost feel bad because they had done such a great job. And we just, once that happened, I was like, well, we're not going to do anything offensively anyways. So it kind of just set the deal. But yeah, the way you pointed out, obviously, Lady Luck a little bit on their side there. And another special teams follow-up, which has kind of haunted us a little bit all year.
Well, there was a lot at play to dive deeper into that. And again, you got to take better angles. I mean, you got to be more disciplined in your angles and projecting where the ball's going to be, not where it is. I mean, Owen, you've been a central part of special teams units, but this is a team, an Iowa State team that had multiple kicks blocked going into the game. And guys, if you saw that long snapper, he was daring you to get back here and block a kick. I mean, he was lobbing those things back here. If you remember early in the game, we had a running into the kicker. Fortunately, it was 4th and 6, and it didn't convert for them. They still punted out, or they declined it actually because they liked the punt. But you really felt we were going to get to one. Anthony Del Greco almost got that first one, but Reese has to take a better angle. But that kind of got the best of us there. So there was a lot of give and take on those special teams. But the last time, here's what was so frustrating about it. It was signs of the Jordan Leslie defenses we'd seen in the previous 2 years. I mean, for 3 quarters, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like the 2020 team that led the nation in pass defense. It felt like the team that the last 3 years led Pro Football Focus in the Big 12 in tackling efficiency grade. I mean, for 3 quarters, that's what the defense felt like, and we still weren't able to capitalize on it. And there haven't been a whole lot of turnover time with the turnovers and the injuries on the defensive side with the personnel turnover and then the injuries, that we've had moments that felt like the great successes we've had in the last couple of years defensively. This year, those have been few and far between, but it felt like it. But because of the offensive struggles, we were struggling to such a degree that it was 10-7, and here comes the roughing the kicker. Here comes the 2 big plays and the touchdown. That made it 17-7. Guys, it felt like it was 56-7 because the way the last time I felt like that, I can tell you when it was. The Champs Sports Bowl. Okay. Part of that second half. Yeah, the Russell Wilson Champ Sports Bowl. I mean, we kind of had him corralled. That was that nationally ranked defense we had with Jeff Castile in 2010 with Chris Neal.
7 guys on that defense took snaps on Sundays in the league.
That's exactly right. Number 4, number 3 in the country in a lot of key metrics.
They ran into Mr. Unlimited.
Well, even then, they kept him under control. I mean, he didn't really dominate us. We kept him within arm's length. But it was 23-7 for a good portion of the second half, which theoretically is a 2-possession game, even when it was 16-7, because you're thinking, all right, touchdown, 2-point conversion, touchdown, PAT. But it felt like it was 123-7 because the offense couldn't do anything. We were anemic in that Champ Sports Bowl. That's before Gino and those guys got lathered up and cranking under Dana. But that's what it felt like on Saturday. It was 17-7. And because of our struggles offensively, you're like, wow, it feels a lot worse than it actually is because we've struggled so mightily on the offensive side of the ball to get anything going.
And like we talked before, this team just doesn't have that
alpha,
that one player, right? That guy that you just know there's going to be a positive play that's going to happen from somebody, right? Whoever that guy is on your team. We just don't have that star player. And, like I said, man, they go down, they have their way with you after what seems like just our luck this year, a bonehead play.
Yeah, and then it doesn't help, obviously, right? I mean, that makes it 17-7. At that point, there's still 13 minutes in the game. So hypothetically, if you
plenty of game left, absolutely.
Plenty of game left, and JT throws bang, 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 3 straight incomplete passes. You punt it right back to him. They drive down the field and score again, and then it was definitely over. But yeah, that as well too. Listen, there's always a lot of things that go into that. But from the Reese Smith penalty, and then 4 plays later, they're finally got some cushion there with a 10-point lead, and then 4 plays later they've got the ball back once again. That whole sequence was the straw that broke the camel's back, certainly. So there's our pivotal moments: the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between.
I want to check something here, guys.
I need to go have a beer and a lie down after rehashing all of that.
Well, they had in the fourth quarter again after that punt. They had two runs from scrimmage, and we completely bottled them up for 3 quarters. They had the reverse for 27 yards. That's the only time they did anything in the run game for 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, they popped not 1 but 2 30-plus yard runs. Guys, all year long, they only have 4. And 2 of them came in the fourth quarter after that running into the kicker. Roughing the kicker. I keep miscalling that and butchering it. But 2 of their 4 30-plus yard runs from scrimmage as an offense this year came in the fourth quarter after we roughed the kicker. Yep. And like I said, if that didn't break the spirit of our defense, which seemed like it was on a thread. I mean, it had the sense you're waiting on the dam to break if they can't get some offensive help. It certainly, broke their execution because our technique wasn't there after that. I mean, everything that got us to that point that they say they did so well at and were so efficient at through 3+ quarters, it vanished quickly. It was just the strain. That was the straw that broke the defensive camel's back. The strain was too much. And you got to wonder what happens if instead of a roughing, that's a blocked punt,
Well, that gives you the spirit, right? That's the juice.
That's what I'm saying, Owen. You're exactly right. Don't you think the defense, power, let's say we blocked the punt, we go up 14-10. Don't you think the defense we saw for the first 3 quarters might continue for another 14 minutes?
Oh, it's going to fire you up, dude. That's what I mean. You got to,
because finally they're going hunting instead of protecting the fort.
Good way of putting it. Good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oof.
And that's what Reese Smith had in mind. Obviously, he didn't go in there with the intention of, hey, let me give them a free pass, another set of downs at the 36. He went in there thinking, hey, our offense is struggling, and I'm going to sell out to try and make a play and help us win. But again, poor angle, poor discipline on.
But Jed, just even that same thing. Yeah, hey, make a play, but still got to execute within the rules of the game. You know what I mean? Those guys practice that stuff. That ain't. You know what I mean? That's not.
Like I said,
it's not something new. You know what I mean?
No.
That ain't something new. That just blocking the punt there. Those guys work on that stuff throughout the week in special teams periods. So it just seems like we just aren't getting those plays this year that gives you that juice. That's like I said, that star power.
You guys have never been part of these drills. Again, Owen, you played a lot of special teams, but for our listeners and viewers that have never really taken part of this, when you set a target up for those edge blockers, it's amazing when you look at the angle they're supposed to take to block the punt, because you're thinking, what are you doing sending him there? The punter's at a depth of 15 yards. That's nowhere near where that punt. Exactly. This is where the launch point from the ball is by the time it leaves his foot. So what happened was Reese Smith, instead of taking that ideal angle that is so shallow, where the launch point would be, he miscalculated the angle and he didn't hit it where the punter started, but obviously he hit it too close to where the punter was, and instead hitting the launch point at the punter. But,
yeah, because a lot of time, really, that's in the scouting report for special teams right away. They're going to tell you where that point's at, and then, you're going to rep that. I mean, that's all we can practice, and then most of the time, those plays are, that angle or whatever, that approach is still just to take the ball off the kicker's foot. You know what I mean? If anything, if there is a miss, you're going to miss in front, right? It's just basically your hands are going in front. They're going to cross them up. And the miss is usually in front, right? It's never behind.
Let me ask you something, Owen.
Yep.
You may know the answer to this because I don't. Okay. I'm not sure. Now, all that, again, this is information that's well documented. It's in the scouting reports. You rep it all week. So you're anticipating a certain depth when you go to block a punt, when you're on the punt block unit. What kind of impact do you think a long snapper that is uncharacteristically slow? I mean, that I'm telling you, that long snapper was lobbing those things back there. And I can't imagine there's a lot of consistency with his snap number 1 to his snap number 4, 7. I wouldn't hear. All I can tell you is that's the slowest long snapper I've seen in a long time. Do you think there's a chance that because that snap takes so long to reach the punter, that could I don't know the answer. Could that somehow impact, because it's not getting there as crisply as it normally would? And you're thinking, okay, it's going to get there quickly. I'm going to go here instead of there. I don't know the answer.
Here's what I say. I guess if we recap that play and you looked up the film, regardless of how fast the snap takes, right? The timing of the kick is going to be the same, right? So yeah, from the snap to the kicker is going to be slower, but the actual kick itself is going to run the same amount of time every time because he has an internal clock. Once he gets the ball, hey, it needs to be out. So that sequence from the snap to the punter, that's one calculation. And then from the punter to the foot is another calculation. So if anything, the slower, right, wouldn't be on the punter, right? The slower would be on the snapper. So if anything, it would give us more time to get to the ball to make that play.
That's interesting because both those things contribute to your target spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Words, yeah.
But if you think about it, the way the kicker's punting, his is going to be the same rep every time. Yeah. Regardless of how fast he gets the ball, right? Now, if it was something where it was like a high snap or something like that where he had to jump up, he might go into maybe a one-step kick
and
versus a two-step.
Because as a blocker, if you're Reese Smith, I mean, you're not waiting on the punter to catch it. Your reps are all coming on the snap.
Yeah,
you're firing off the edge as that loopy snap is taking place. So anything that takes place after that, you're still hitting that same target point.
Yeah.
So if anything, maybe you should have been out in front of it instead of back toward the punter. It's just like I said, it's been a long time since I saw a long snapper who made me even consider these things, because I'm thinking that's the best guy on your roster to do that. I almost think you could have tryouts from the stands here and find somebody that could zip it back here with a little more pepper than what we were seeing. But again, they've had 3 blocked this year.
Well, and that's probably a big reason why. Obviously, I mean, guys get drafted to be snappers. I mean, that's how important that position has become. And you can play a long time and make a lot of money in the league doing that.
What did last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't know who he plays for, but he's like in the top 5 all time of games played. He's still in the league, and he just like eclipsed somebody to move into the top so-and-so. But you're right. I mean, that's, if you want to train your kid to do something and do it well and refine one craft, okay, that could make them a lot of money.
That ball, baby.
I mean, snap that ball. I mean, become a long snapper. That is a very unique skill set and a unique art. And if you can become dedicated enough to it, boy, you're going to find your place in this athletic world, in this world of college football, maybe beyond. But it's just so strange to walk into a situation where you see a Power 5 program without somebody whipping it on back there,
Yeah, if you guys want some good reading material, anybody listening to the channel, look up a story. John Dorenbos was a long snapper for the Eagles. He's a good story.
John Dorenbos, is he still in the league?
No,
he is no longer. He's retired, yes, but he just a interesting story. So definitely check him out.
I mean, those guys have shelf life, guys. Our buddy of mine coached a kid at Shippensburg that he was in the league forever and a day as a long snapper, But anyway, this is the longest conversation.
This is long snapping radio here on IG.
Yep, sorry about that, guys.
No, I knew you'd know more about it than I would just because of the reps you've taken in those segments. But
well, I was trying to do that at the end of my pro career to try to hang on and to maybe even change up to where that would give me some more longevity. Just never got a chance to put a live rep on film.
Well, maybe we'll have to change that. I was just going to say maybe we'll have to work on that this summer. But we got to get to our last break here. When we come back on the other side, we'll wrap things up. We'll tell you what we got going on the rest of the week. We'll put a bow on all these shenanigans. You are in the gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Mountaineer Nation, have you visited us online? For great gifts and gear and our entire episode playlist, check out itgfootball.com.
All right, folks. Well, we got through it together. Episode 24 here, the Iowa State recap. Thanks again to our buddies at Bet Online for presenting this episode. Gentlemen, some good news quick before we go and we tease everything and we got, telling everybody here what's going on the rest of the week. I don't know if you guys saw this today, but Sunday night as we record this, WVU women's soccer team won the Big 12 championship earlier today. So in overtime against TCU, so a big shout out to Nikki Izzo-Brown and the girls there. Fifth time capturing the Big 12 title in the last decade. Is that pretty good? I think that's pretty good.
Big win over Texas to get there. So yeah, that was quite a stretch they went on there. Yeah,
I need to start watching soccer.
Kudos.
Yeah, go Ears, baby. So women's team Big 12 champions. The men's team's into the semifinals of their tournament in the Sun Belt. So yeah, up the footy in Morgantown. And Jack Elliott, who is a WVU alum, scored a huge goal in the MLS Cup final for the Philadelphia Union on Sunday as well, or on Saturday as well too. So, hey, football school, just maybe the different kind of football here temporarily. Football school. So we'll have full Oklahoma preview for you later on in the week. You're getting the recap episode here a little early this week.
Begs the question. We'll see. I mean, there's going to be a lot of chatter about when you find yourself in a slump like this. Okay, there's very fair.
Is that what they're calling this, Jed?
Well, that's what I would call it. Okay.
I mean, you're the signal caller, so
being last in the Big 12.
Look, I'm in last place for scoring systems. Don't give me that.
Hey, Jed knows last place, Owen. He knows last place.
I do know. You're somewhat limited in changes you can or can't make, even from an injury standpoint. But I mean, maybe you're looking at some personnel changes. I don't know. I mean,
listen, consistency. All right, let's just start there.
Yeah, we'll see if anything switched around or if there's any philosophical changes to reinvigorate some things. But we're on a skid and things haven't worked in some time. I mean, we came out of the Baylor game and it looked like that was new life. And that new life was very short-lived by that performance in Lubbock, which was followed by the frustration against TCU, a missed opportunity there, and then another missed opportunity. So it's fair to say, okay, well, maybe shake some things up and take a different approach against an Oklahoma team that's eager to stay unbeaten as in Big 12 play against West Virginia coming to Morgantown. We'll see. I mean, nobody has those answers at this juncture, but it's fair to entertain those conversations.
Invite Wes and I up to give you all the special sauce.
Are you coming?
I'll be there.
Are you coming?
For the OU game? That's next week, isn't it?
Okay. Some people will say an open invitation is no invitation, but you have an open invitation. You realize that, right? Okay. Now, some people say it's not an invitation, an open invitation. It's not an invitation. No, you have an open invitation, and it is an invitation. Get to Morgantown.
I might have to bring the power. We do have a big playoff game Friday against South Harrison.
So, South Harrison just smoked us, Tucker County.
Yep. We do have a big
smoked us.
Yep.
Ended us our first loss Friday night.
Yep. So I will be thankfully they went for the Friday night game. So Friday 7:30, South Harrison, first playoff game of the playoffs for us. So hopefully I'll come bearing good news.
Those dudes.
As soon as the game's over, you get in the car, you drive to Morgantown, you sleep in the parking lot for a few hours. I'll knock on your door about 8:30 with some cold ones.
Hey, right where it'll come full circle, right where we filmed our first promo video, next to the porta potty in the blue lot, right?
Yes.
Looking at Milan Pushkar Stadium from the hospital side.
We'll pound beers and say where it all began.
Mountaineer Field in the background. There you go.
Well, I will be there. Hopefully, Owen will be there. We know Jed will be perusing the sidelines. I'll be in the peach lot poking around if you want to come look for some ITG trouble.
Santa didn't come through. Remember
Santa
last
Claus.
week, Owen made a Santa wish, but I will say this.
Oh, yeah.
He might not have come through with the wind that you wished for. But Owen, you inspired my wife. We got Christmas decorations out front of the house. So,
You know what's crazy about that? I wish I would have plugged him in. He sings songs and does a bunch of crazy stuff. But
we have
for
time.
Another time.
We'll have Christmas episodes next. But listen, don't jump the gun on Thanksgiving here. All right, now just settle down. Let's get through November 1st. Mariah Carey. All right, before you start.
Okay.
Oh my goodness! I saw a funny joke today. It said I can't believe that Mariah Carey is more synonymous with Christmas now than Santa and Jesus Christ. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing here, Mariah?
Now I don't know if I should go watch Elf or Zohan now. Now you got me confused.
You should go watch the end of this Sunday night football game between the Chiefs and the Titans. That's what I'm going to do as soon as we get off here recording. Thanks everybody for rocking and rolling with us. Thanks to all of our sponsors and our friends who helped put this podcast on. As always, make sure you're rocking and rolling with us on social media at In the Gun Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's where you can find us on YouTube as well too. If you want to see our beautiful mugs and all the different graphic elements that Jed puts together for this episode. And of course, as always, be an ear, tell an ear. We ask you to spread the good word of your new favorite WVU football podcast here as we roll along in our inaugural season. We will have the Oklahoma preview for you in just a couple days here. Enjoy the week. One more time, shout out to the women's soccer team and Nikki Izzo Brown for bringing home the title, baby. Trophy season. And basketball starting here as well, too. Good things are on the horizon, all right? Good things are on the horizon, but that'll do it for us this week. Well, sorry, for this episode, pardon me. We'll talk to you later in the week. For Jed Drenning, the Signal Caller, and Owen Schmidt, the Runaway Beer Truck, I'm Wesley Euler. You've been In the Gun.